Hello, my name is Brock, but most people like to call me Hyuntae. I'm a dancer and game designer, and I often come to Kakam for studying Korean and meeting friends and hanging out with people and studying. Part 3, let's talk about English study. Question 1. Do you think English is a difficult language to learn? Yeah, I think English is really difficult to learn. I think probably one of the hardest languages to learn for non-native English speakers, because English has a lot of rules, but in practice, we break so many rules always. So it's quite difficult to really understand the real English. So I think it's really difficult. Question 2. How often do you practice your English? And what is your favorite way to practice your English? I'm a native speaker, so I don't really practice English. Sometimes I feel like I should, but I would say if I do practice English, it's more of when I'm actually teaching it to other people.
What about Korean?
Okay. Should I change the question like that?
No, you can just say your way.
Okay. But when I study Korean, I usually like to practice by reading or watching kind of some Korean TV show. Usually these days without subtitles because it's a little more challenging. And I also like to talk with Korean friends or just practice with Korean friends. And yeah, I think my favorite way to practice studying Korean, in the case of Korean, is usually reading like some webtoon or just watching some show without the subtitles is the most fun for me. And just studying one-on-one with one conversation partner is also really fun for me. Question 3. What is the most difficult thing about English? I think maybe the most difficult thing about English for non-native speakers is probably understanding how to talk in a way that breaks the official rules. So kind of casual speech. I feel like that might be the most difficult way for non-native speakers. For me, in the case of Korean, I think the most difficult thing about learning Korean is kind of similar. Also, just knowing how to change the word forms, because there's so many ways to change. And when you change just the form of the word, it gives totally different meaning. So this is very difficult in my case. Question 4. Why are you learning English? Of course, I'm not learning English, but I'm learning Korean. And I'm learning Korean just because I really enjoy the language. I just find it a lot of fun to get better and use it and just understand it more. I just really enjoy using and speaking the language as much as I can, even though sometimes I'm a little shy. But I just really like learning Korean language. Question 5. Do you think that English will completely dominate all the other languages in the future? If yes, how will it affect the world? I think that English kind of already has dominated all the other languages for the most part, and I think it will keep being that way. However, I don't think this will just eradicate all other languages. I think everyone will always have their native language that they use, and English will always be kind of secondary for most cases and most people. I think people will always retain their actual native language. Question 6. How do you use the internet to learn English? Sometimes I do use the internet when there's some English grammar that I don't really remember the rules behind when I'm teaching or helping someone. And I definitely use the internet for studying Korean. I'm mostly self-taught through the internet, so I think the internet is great and very useful for helping you improve your English or Korean, whichever you're studying. Question 7. What search engine do you use most often when you study, and why? I usually just use Google, and I think most Western people probably use Google, at least definitely in the States. I know in Korea, Naver is typically more popular. But Google for me has always just been the go-to. Google's the most common in the States. So yeah, just Google. Question 8. What is your favorite way to practice your English? In my case, I practice Korean. So my favorite way is usually going to Qualcomm because I have a really great conversation partner who always blows my mind when she helps me study Korean. So I really enjoy studying with her at Qualcomm and just being around other people who can help me improve my Korean a lot. Question 9. How can English language help you advance in your career? In my case, English language has helped a lot with a career as I can teach English so I can survive and make money, which is great in Korea. And even in the States, it was helpful because I got a really good job there too, teaching English. So yeah, being a native English speaker is really helpful. As far as Korean, I want to be a game designer in the Korean game industry. So I think Korean will be very helpful for me to make it into that a lot easier. And I think I will be more useful for working with the company. Question 10. Which country is the best place to study English? In my opinion, I think probably the States is going to be the most useful country for studying English, or even Canada is probably okay. These are the most common forms of English that appear in media and even kind of in business. It's usually the most common and normal way for people to use and speak English these days.